Of all the serial killers who operated during the Soviet Union, this sadistic maniac was the most extraordinary. He always acted unexpectedly and brazenly. Possessing superhuman strength, he could easily break his handcuffs. Thanks to incredible luck, it was not possible to catch him for a long time, but one day the limit, well, luck was finally exhausted. And the cruel killer experienced for himself what it was like to be dead. Meet Anatoly Gasanovich Nagayev. Nicknamed Mad. Anatoly Nagayev was born on January 26, 1958. In the city of Angarsk, Irkutsk region. His father was Dagestan and his mother was Kazakh. When Tolik was 5 years old, the family moved to the village of Invitsia, Kursk region. Soon the father abandoned the family, and the mother and 3 children had to literally fight for survival. Anatoly grew up as a very difficult child. He did not want to study, was an extremely cruel boy and fought constantly. The mother could not cope with her son and sent him to a boarding school, from where Tolik constantly ran away. It is worth noting that the boy loved sports very much. He was seriously involved in weightlifting and gymnastics, and in the future he dreamed of becoming a real circus performer. In life, sports helped him emerge victorious from all fights, even if his opponents were an adult man. He had an attractive appearance and an excellent physique, but the guy had bad inclinations. And the older Tolik became, the more they manifested themselves in him. Anatoly became interested in girls very early. He always complimented them and showed them due signs of attention. Despite his handsome appearance and toned torso, he was not popular with girls. Tolik blamed everything on his small height of 165 centimeters, because of which they made fun of him. Receiving constant refusals from girls, Nagayev became furious, and soon became a real misogynist. Unsure of himself and embittered by the whole world, Nagayev nevertheless knew how to win people over and join any company. It was difficult to suspect a charismatic and polite man of anything bad. He later used this to commit his gruesome murders. Nagayev committed his first crime in May 1975. He beat and raped a vocational school laboratory assistant who rejected his advances. The girl did not report this to the police, since the rapist promised to kill her for this. Feeling his impunity, the scoundrel commits another rape, and again he gets away with it. The victim does not report him again, but the third girl turned out to be not a timid one. A former classmate who was raped by Nagayev, despite death threats, wrote a statement and the rapist was imprisoned for 6 years. Anatoly ends up in one of the colonies of the Komi Republic. They don't like people like him there. On the very first day, the prisoners decide to release Nagayev. However, they still do not suspect that they have contacted not just a rapist, but a real street-bred fighter. Nagayev organizes a real massacre in his cell, after which no one decides to hurt the guy again. By the way, this is where he gets his nickname, the Mad One. While Nagayev was extremely aggressive among the inmates, he behaved very politely with the colony staff and unquestioningly followed all their instructions. Therefore, after 4 years of imprisonment for good behavior, he was transferred from the zone to a settlement, to the logging village of Chikshino, where he was given relative freedom. In 1979, singer Alla Borisovna Pugacheva rapidly gained popularity. Anatoly Nagayev, who is serving time, becomes her true admirer. The rapist sets a goal for himself. No matter what it takes to achieve the favor of the young singer, and if it doesn't work out, take her by force. In the future, feelings for Pugacheva take over the guy so much that in many of his future victims he will see the image of the prima donna. Nagayev committed his first murder while he was still serving time for rape. This happened on January 30, 1979, in the city of Pekara, 46 kilometers from the village of Chikshino, where settlers were sometimes sent to go shopping on weekends. At the Pechera railway station, Nagayev met a girl who looked like the prima donna. Using his charm, he successfully asked to visit her. There the men began to harass the girl, demanding sex. Having received the refusal, Nagayev became furious. Grabbing a kitchen knife, he inflicted about 30 blows on the unfortunate victim, and when the girl died, he violated her body and left. After this incident, the rapist was in a state of constant fear for a long time. He expected every minute to be arrested, but after a couple of months he realized that he had gotten away with the crime and calmed down. In May of the same 1979, Nagayev committed his second murder. To get to Pekhara, Nagayev bribed the conductor of the Ukta-Pekhara train and he put him in the compartment of the carriage. Unfortunately, a woman who also looked like Pugakova was traveling in this compartment. At least that's what it seemed to Nagayev. The man invited her to make love to him right on the train. In response, the woman not only refused him, but also called him insulting names. Nagayev became furious. He grabbed the knife and stabbed the victim twice. And then he strangled him with a handkerchief. After this, he performed sexual acts with the already dead body and removed gold jewelry from the corpse. Having hidden the victim's body under the lower seat, Maniac moved to another compartment and calmly drove to Pekhara. A few hours later the woman's body was found and the police were called. The conductor, of course, guessed who the killer was, but remained silent for fear of being held accountable for malfeasance. Experts were able to connect the crime in the train carriage and in Pekhara. In both cases, the killer left traces of semen on the victims' bodies. But the investigation had no more evidence and therefore the case turned into another hang-up. Meanwhile, Nagayev was quietly serving his sentence in the settlement, and in the same 1979, in November, he was released on parole. Anatoly returned home, where he spent his childhood, and continued to do his dirty deeds. The maniac attacked women, beat them, robbed them and raped them, but did not kill them. During the 10 months that Nagayev was free, he raped about 30 women. According to some reports, even his own sister became a victim of the maniac, but Anatoly never forgot her idol Alla Pugakova. In 1980, he decided that the time had come and went to look for the prima donna in the capital. Anatoly Nagayev went to Moscow on the Kharkov-Moscow train. He once again pitied the conductor with the story of his supposedly sick mother, who is undergoing surgery in the capital. Believing in this, the female conductor allowed the stowaway man into the half-empty carriage and this was her fatal mistake. Taking a closer look at the conductor, Nagayev once again discovered the woman's resemblance to Alla Borisovna. The man invited her to have sex with him, but received a rude refusal. Snatching a hunting knife, the maniac stabbed the woman to death. Unfortunately, the second conductor entered the carriage, and the man stabbed her too. Leaving the lifeless bodies of the two conductors, Nagayev began checking the carriage to make sure that no one had seen him. In one of the compartments he found 2 women, whom he also dealt with. At the end of the carriage, the serial killer found the electrician of the train crew, but did not touch him. The man experienced a real shock when a maniac covered in blood looked into his compartment, but he said, "I cut women like chickens, but I don't touch men," and went out, carefully closing the door behind him. The electrician locked himself in and spent the next hour shaking with fear, waiting for the madman to change his mind and come back to kill him. But Najev had no time for him. He returned to the dead women, removed their gold jewelry, all valuables and rings, and then carried the bodies into the vestibule and threw them off the carriage. Having gotten rid of the corpses, Nagayev got off at the nearest station, and the frightened electrician was discovered only in Kursk, when new passengers began to enter the carriage. It was he who the investigator tried to accuse of the murders after the discovery of the women's bodies. To make their version more credible, they even stained the electrician's boots with blood, but their version quickly fell apart. The train foreman saw the illegal passenger and was able to describe his appearance. Having reached Moscow, Nagayev began to look for the prima donna to win her heart, but the killer's mission was doomed to failure. Alla Borisovna was always surrounded by her colleagues and fans, it was so easy to get close to her. Realizing that nothing would work out, Nagayev decided to temporarily postpone his plan to get Pugacheва. The maniac went home to lie low for a while. Upon arrival, he hid the jewelry taken from the victim's well and gave the diamond ring to his friend. He couldn't remove the jewelry on his finger and turned to a local jeweler. Since the descriptions of the jewelry had already been sent by the police to workshops and purchases, the master easily recognized the product and reported the visit to the police. The client was detained and he immediately told how the valuable item came into his possession. The operatives immediately went to Nagayev's home, but found only his mother. The woman said that her son went to Dnepropetrovsk to visit friends and began looking for the guy in the city on the Dnieper. In one of the killer's notebooks the address of Anatoly's Passion was found, and in addition the address of Alla Pugacheва, with an obscene curse written next to it. On September 12, 1980, Anatoly Nagayev was arrested in Dnepropetrovsk. The maniac immediately refused to admit his guilt and was placed in a press hut. But Bishanov's cellmates did not know who they had contacted. An attempt to put pressure on Nagayev cost one of them an eye, and almost made the second disabled. While the investigation was ongoing, the maniac was in the pre-trial detention center in the city of Orel. From there he made his first escape. Scattering the guards, he tore his handcuffs and jumped out the window. Having injured his back in the fall, Nagayev was immobilized, and he was quickly returned to the pre-trial detention center. Soon Anatoly made another attempt to escape. He broke the spoon and stuck it in his stomach. But in the hospital they kept an eye on the maniac and the plan to escape from the ward again failed. The trial of the serial killer took place in the summer of 1981. The maniac behaved defiantly and pretended to be crazy. This did not stop the judges from sentencing him to death. The sentence was to be carried out in the famous prison of Novokirkisk, where the most famous maniacs of the Rostov Triangle were shot. But at one of the stations, Nagayev managed to escape from the hands of the guards and escape. The head of the Criminal Investigation Department of the Kursk Department of Internal Affairs gave an unspoken order. If we don't take this bastard alive, he's already been sentenced to death. If someone is lucky, then carry it out. While studying the fugitive's connections, operatives found Nagayev's girlfriend, who lived in the village of Yanovo, Rostov region. There, in one of the haystacks, the capture group discovered the killer. During his arrest, Nagayev tried to shoot back with a sawn-off shotgun, but received several bullets and was detained. Doctors miraculously managed to save the maniac's life. But only so that the sentence is carried out in accordance with the law. On October 28, 1981, Anatoly Nagayev, a bloody maniac who was only 23 years old, was shot. Thus, the case of another brutal killer was put to rest.